Hi there. Welcome to Tech with Peter and Banugo. And this week's episode of Web Platform and HTTP Caching, I'm joined by Sylvain. I think Sylvain Combraque. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. And it's a
Uh,
pleasure to have you.
my pleasure too. Yeah, that's in French. We say Sylvain, but
Oh,
the un is not a real for English people. That's not easy to pronounce. So pronounce it as you want. That's okay.
okay. I'm not sure how. I don't think I can do the French R, so pardon me there.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
Yeah, so maybe since we already started chatting, maybe you want to introduce yourself a bit for the audience.
Okay. So I'm Sylvain Combraque. I'm a Golang developer and React.js architect as a freelance. But in my free time, I'm contributing to the open source community on many projects, some web projects, and we will talk about that later, and some projects that are not um, directly web-based, such as some pen testing tools or something like that. Um, because um, I have the conviction that the open source can drive the world, and it's driving the world. So I want to give back to the community what the community gave me in the past. And that's why I'm contributing a lot. And I'm giving some conferences about performances, and more really on the HTTP cache and what are the best practices on the web to improve performances. And that's all I think.
And that's interesting. So I think you are quite, uh, should I say, full stack across the web. You mentioned pen testing, which is more quite also security focused. So I don't
Um,
know anyone that I would say they are also doing React.js and Go and also doing pen testing.
I'm not doing some pen testing as a job because I'm not a pen tester, but I have a friend that is itself a pen tester, and he
Okay.
needed some tools, and I helped him to code these tools because the security branch is too large for me, and uh, I don't have time for all that.
I
So I can't practice on it at the moment, but maybe in the future when I have some time. Why not?
Yeah, that sounds fun. And yeah, I agree with your conviction about open source. I think it's amazing. To because we have a lot of tools that are open source that we use, but we still have a lot of people that are not contributing to open source. I'm not sure. Maybe it could
Yeah,
be for different reason, but maybe no time after full time job, or maybe they don't really understand what open source is. What do you
yeah,
think about that?
and the, I think open source needs some time to build some features or improve our bugs. But that's not mandatory for me to contribute on that. That's just because I have this philosophy and I have the time for that. So as a freelance, I say, okay, tomorrow I won't work. That's not a problem, and I work on some open source projects. And when I was as a intern in some companies, I couldn't um, contribute as I wanted. So that's why I'm now freelance. That's easier to contribute. And so as I said, that's not mandatory. You can just open an issue and say, okay, your project is awesome, and the maintainer will be happy to see that. So that's the kind of support also, and you don't have to code to support project. So that's the good part of the open source. And we can say, oh, thank you for, and that's appreciated.
Yeah, I think I think companies also should, like I said, find time to make time for open source contribution since they also use a lot of it. I only know a handful of maybe just one colleague, one friend who works at a place where they give them some hours every month to be able to create or contribute to open source. So it would be nice if a lot of companies can contribute in that way. If you can contribute code, maybe also some financial part of it to sustain people like you that also make widely used open source tool like Souin. So probably that takes us to what is Souin. Or how do you pronounce it? I'm not sure. It's a very complex word.
Yeah, as Sylvain, that's one. Swing is okay too, because that's a kind of joke in French. So that's when something is a swamp that's pretty or something that's beautiful, and it was in the 2010 near sister. That was a word massively used, and
The word
I
who
found
used?
that the word to say, oh, that's pretty, or like that, and
Okay.
I choose this word, but more experienced tool, Swain, so
Swing.
is
Okay.
is an HTTP cache. Basically, it was designed to work with traefik only.
Before
So
you
reverse it.
before you continue, maybe I don't know. Somehow I feel like I lose maybe connection, or I feel like I lose your voice a bit. Like it's just coming in a bit. Not sure if it's something with the mic or if it's just my connection because I'm streaming to multiple
I
places.
will try to use the mic.
Yeah, we can try and see if it gets better. Otherwise, you can also switch back. Not sure if it's from my connection. I can't hear you. No. Maybe we go back to the to the headphone. We can go back to the headphone and try with that. No, I can't hear you. I can't. Uh, Not sure what happened. Probably you can also refresh your browser if none of the mics work, since we are using the browser stream. So let's hope he comes back. Can you try again?
Yeah,
Yeah, I could hear you.
you hear me? Ah, okay,
Hi.
fine, perfect. Okay. So
I think you were explaining
uh,
sewing.
yeah, that was designed to work with the traffic reverse proxy that is written in Go, and that can allow you to have a CIDR, so a host name or just a path name, and redirect the traffic to the targeted service. So it works with Docker, and you just have to say, oh, this label will match this condition, and if that match, it will redirect the HTTP request to this service. But there was some issue, like each HTTP request had to connect to the service and instantiate a new TCP/IP connection and send the request, wait the response, etc. And I was looking for an HTTP cache other than Varnish, and there was some projects on GitHub that was mainly some Act, and it used some shell script to synchronize and have a minimal cache server. And at this time, I was asking myself to start a new language, and I was saying, why not Go? And I learned Go with this project. So
Wow.
there is still some legacy code from this period, but from this time. But I'm trying to remove this ugly code when I can. Especially yeah.
I was going to say that's impressive, having to learn Go and building an amazing cache plugin that is already widely used.
Yeah, but when I started that, it was for my personal use, and that was a dumb cache. So just a request come, I check in my dictionary or associative key value if I have already the response, and return it if I had it, or send the request to the service and store the response when the service returns the response. So it was an HTTP cache, but it was really dumb. that wasn't respect the RFCs and some conditions to be used in a production environment.
It was done was it done because it didn't respect the RFC or because it didn't store the response?
Yeah, because it didn't respect the RFC. You couldn't control it using the maxage or smaxage direct cache control directives. It didn't respect the expires, response header, and other things that make an HTTP cache reliable. And for my personal use, it wasn't a problem, but it was a problem for those who wanted to use it. And it acted as a standalone server, like Varnish, for example. And after that, I started to implement the RFC and respect the RFC in it. And so after many iterations, it was like the project was nearly 1 or 2 years when I started to implement the RFC rules. So 2 years when it was a dumb cache and not really usable.
Does that mean it's really hard to, implement this RFC?
It's not really hard, but there are some tricky parts.
Okay.
In the RFC, it says, oh, if this case happen, you have to respond that. And in this other case, you have another way to treat the request, and you have so much cases to respect. So it's not hard, but it takes time because you have to read the RFC, understand the RFC, and implement the RFC in your code. So that's just some if-else conditions, but you have some if-else blocks in another if-else blocks in another if-else blocks. So that's insane to support all of that. But for example, to support the cache control, you have the choice to recode the parser for this directive, or there was already some libraries
To
that
record what?
what
I missed you. You said you needed to record some or use a library. I didn't get what you needed to record.
you had to extract the directives in the cache control. For example, max age or no store, no cache, etc.
Okay.
There are some libraries that already do that, so I just used them. And in 2022, I think, Traefik launched the plugin system, and I rewrote Souin to be compatible with that, and I started to support other providers, not only Traefik, but Kaji, Bigo, and other Golang reverse proxies. So that's at this time Souin was okay for production because the RFC was implemented. It respects most of the cases, and once I published the middleware for the module for Kaji, a lot of people tried the module, and there was some production issues that happened only in the real world, and there was some some nights to spend to fix these cases.
Oh, interesting. But before
And yeah.
before you built Suing, were there
Yeah.
like alternative in that space, or what there
So
was none?
the alternative was Varnish, but you can if you have a Varnish instance, you have to maintain it and maintain your application behind it. And it can't be integrated in a module or just as a middleware in applications because it has to run as a proxy. So imagine you have your application with a PHP app or something like that. Your reverse proxy like Kaji, Traefik, etc. And in front of that, you have a Varnish to maintain. And if you have only one node, you can use the free tier of Varnish. But if you want some distributed storages and some stuff like that, you have to pay the enterprise version. So that's not my philosophy, and that's why I continued this project, and I want to give to users the ability to deploy their own cache system, HTTP cache system, without paying other than the servers that need to run that. Because you have to pay the license for Varnish, but they don't give you some servers. So that's problematic.
Yeah, true. I also thought of along the same line when I was checking out some cache proxies, and I skipped Vanish because it looked nice and well used, but it's enterprise and a lot of information are behind maybe sales calls or some enterprise features, and I didn't spend time trying to learn Vanish. So that's
Yeah,
quite
and the thing I really don't like with Varnish is the VCL so the varnish configuration language.
Yeah.
So you can hack the real HTTP cache behavior with some own rules, and you can say, oh, for this path, you won't respect the RFC, for example, and that's not good because your applications won't be consistent as and won't respect the HTTP semantics.
True.
So, and as it's a configuration language, you have as many as people use Varnish, you have as many configuration possible.
True.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's clear. So each people can have its own configuration, its own way to configure its rules. So for example, if you check the Drupal or Symfony Varnish configuration, you have something like thousands and thousands configuration possible, depending your needs, etc. And I think they could give a simpler way to configure Varnish. For example, I choose the YAML and KG file for a specific reverse proxy, but it supports the YAML configuration. That's format that you can generate from code, or you just have to respect the tabs, and that's all. And with some configuration keys, you can configure your cache behavior without knowing another language, like the VCL.
Yeah.
And for me, the VCL is really ugly, and that's not well designed. I already discussed with the Varnish or team.
With who?
Because what?
You discussed with who?
With a core team member. I don't know.
Advantage.
I don't remember its name, but yeah, because I said in a conference in the past that Varnish sucked, and there was not really happy, and we discussed about the VCL, etc. And they said, yeah, but it can allow the user to have its own specific configuration and add its own rules. And to me, that's bad because it breaks the HTTP semantics, etc. And I think we won't be away with the Varnish team, because I don't share their vision of the HTTP cache.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also if you look at Vanish and where it's coming from, I think Vanish has been there for many years. So I think probably at that time there was fewer standards regarding caching. So probably that configuration made it possible for you to write your own code to make it behave with some latest requirement for yourself. So maybe take for example, uh, if you are using Vanish and maybe Vanish doesn't support, let's say, automatically caching maybe JSON files, and you want to cache JSON response, you could write your own VCL to do that before maybe Vanish releases it as an optional configuration. I think that makes it possible, but with things like this, there's also possibility that they get abused and people just write their own. You don't understand HTTP and you just write your own rule, like, oh no, if you see these headers, cache it. If you don't see these headers, don't cache it. So people can also abuse it in that way.
Yeah, totally agree. And there are other things in varnish that are ugly that don't respect the new RFCs, especially on the cache status, for example. They return the X cache status. So the prefix X is deprecated in the HTTP RFC, and they still use it. So they are like, oh, your RFC are bad, and we won't support that. So we keep our behavior and just get out with your new RFC.
Yeah, but maybe to play the good guy for Vanish, maybe just like you have with the legacy code in Souin, maybe they've had the legacy code and nobody dares touch that part of the code in Vanish.
Yeah, but they can just change X cache status in
That's
cache
true,
status.
yeah.
Because they implemented the RFC because it has the same, they look the same between X status from Varnish and the cache status from the RFC. The format is the same, but they still use a deprecated header, and that's like the Y keys and the X keys. There is now an RFC for the cache invalidation, and they still use the cache tag invalidation cache group. Yeah, that's the cache group. And they still use Y keys and X keys, and doesn't deprecate it in favor of the cache group behavior. So to me, Varnish is everywhere in the production. So as they are everywhere, they can say we won't support the new standard, and we keep the previous one. And they don't want to evolve and to follow the best practices, and that's I feel sad for them because they're stuck with some old responses.
Yeah, but you should also be happy for yourself because now you are giving the next generation a better tool with Sui.
Yeah, that's good for me, but there is no not a real competition, so I'm like alone with the new features. So okay, I'm the first with the new features with the new RFCs, but there is no competition. So that's why I can say okay, instead of implementing the RFC this week, I can do it the next week. So I have the time to implement it, but there is no rush. So that's good and not good.
Oh, I
So
see.
there is not a big dynamic about the RFC's implementation. But that's not only Varnish. There is Apache that has the HTTP module, and they are not implementing the new RFC too. So the old stuff will stay old stuff.
I think all this comes with like a legacy comes with a blessing and a curse because also if you look at a couple of things, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. So if you look at a couple of things, like maybe for example in Node.js, I don't know if you're familiar with. I think you should be familiar with Node.js. Yeah. So if you look at some APIs that people would like to be better, and they complain about, sometimes the authors would like to make it better, but they can't change everything because of they want to maintain backward compatibility. Also, like when I talked with Robin Max on the second episode of this podcast, we talked about also Quick, and we looked at how it was when Quick went to production. A lot of system failed because like all the old proxies and firewalls still only understand TCP. Like HTTP was so baked into TCP protocol, and they couldn't evolve it. So those kind of backward compatibility makes people stuck in the with the old systems, and they can't move forward anymore. And it's hard to change for something like HTTP and other internet protocol. You can't just change it like that because a lot of things depend on that. So maybe that could be a reason for vanish, and maybe with Souin people can start moving to Traefik, Cardi, and using these tools differently.
Yeah, and to bounce on the Quick and HTTP, some systems are downgrading from HTTP 3 to HTTP 2 or HTTP 1, and because their system doesn't support the new HTTP version. But that's like 10 years ago, HTTP 2 was released. But I know some systems that are only supporting HTTP 1.1, and I agree about the backward compatibility, because in big systems you have to maintain things, and you don't want some breaking changes.
Yeah,
that's true.
if you look at a lot of servers, web servers from this programming language, I don't know about I'm not sure about Go, but I know in Node.js is still heavily 1.1 servers. And there's HTTP2 support, but I don't think the HTTP2 support is fully compliant in Node.js. And then I think I checked some other programming languages as well, and most of them are still like on HTTP1. So these things like take a hard time to really implement. Maybe also for like Node.js it could be a thing of like priorities, but you still find a lot of people are still running HTTP1 servers, and so there's not so much motivation to move to HTTP2, and let alone even talk of Quick or HTTP3. Like I was looking at the web transport protocol, which is supposed to supersede WebSocket, and that one is supposed to work mostly with Quick because of the multiplexing, and would be a nice feature to use. But then a lot of servers are still running on 1.1 or maybe 2, so those are like also out of the question. And all these things you take into consideration when you look at your apps. And that reminds me of the Internet Explorer days.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the implementation itself in the language that can't support the higher versions of HTTP. For example, in Traefik, there was blocked with HTTP 1 for years because in their implementation they couldn't support HTTP 2, and they had to rewrite everything about the HTTP layer to support the HTTP 2, and that's big stuff to do. And when you say, is that really important to migrate to a newer version? And sometimes that's not a high priority. And
Yeah.
but when you say you will have some performances increase, your performance will increase, and you'll have more bandwidth to serve other content or something like that. At my opinion, that's a good point to implement some new versions and support new protocols or new versions, because you have some real real features that are bring by the new protocol of the new version. If that's just some typo fix or something like that, you don't have to upgrade your versions.
Oh yeah. It's not always that easy or straightforward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I see. Also with Souin, I see you have. It's quite nice that they implement all these RFCs, and I found it. I think I found Souin when I was talking to someone, and that made me pick up the download the RFCs to read, and I'm like, the 911, the 9111 RFC, it's like maybe 90 pages or so. It's very long, and I haven't even finished a few pages yet. uh, I just dumped it because it's too much information to kind of go through.
Yeah, but the 9111 was almost a rewrite of the previous caching RFC. So
Yeah.
most of the things are the same, but they removed some legacy directives. They removed totally removed the pragma no cache from the RFC that was only used on HTTP 1.0. But yeah, you have you have some pages to read to
Yeah.
understand everything. And that's really big. Some newer RFCs are smaller than this one because I think they say okay, it's better if we separate things instead of having a big RFC that try to implement standard of everything about the caching.
So is that why they likely have like various, like they have this 9211 for the cache status, and then they have another one for I think they have a newer one for targeted CDN cache control. So
Yeah,
they have
and
smaller. Those ones were easier for me to read because there are not a lot of pages to go through.
yeah, and that this RFCs doesn't have some complexity or complex examples. That just it just say okay for the cache status. Okay, if you hit, you have to say it was it. That's logic. If that's a miss, you have to say that's a miss. That's logic too, and that's just some logic logic test, and you have to construct your either value string with this logic. So it's like some Lego or something like that, just adding more information to your response header.
No, I
So
see.
you will, for example, the cache status, you will always have the cache name. So for example, in Swin, that's Swin. After that, you will have the hit or miss, and after that, you will have some detail like the key, the reason about the miss, and the status code if you missed and contact the upstream, for example. And that's simpler than the cache status, the HTTP cache RFC that say okay, you have to take in consideration the expire, but if you have the no cache with the max age directive, you don't have to honor the expire, and that's more tricky to implement that.
Now I see. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And
But if you don't have something to do tonight, you can read the whole RFCs.
yeah, I have different things. So I stopped halfway with one of the with 9111, and I don't know when I will go back because now I'm tinkering with a different idea or project. but I'm still, I go back and forth with them. I I recently implemented like a caching
Okay.
middleware, kind of like a middleware for the Fetch API. So if you use Fetch API in Node.js, I kind of made like a wrapper around it. So if instead of using the Fetch API directly, you can use this wrapper, and it would have all this caching behind it. But for now, it only supports the 7234 RFC, because there's already a library in npm that have all this semantics, so it's
Okay.
easier for me to use. And I don't think I have enough time to. Maybe I will finish it in 3 years to implement the 911 for, because I don't see anybody trying to build something like that. So for now, it's that's what it's supposed. Maybe I could show a bit how it um, so it's the library. It's called cacheable fetch.
Okay.
And so it's like a wrapper around fetch, but only for use in the backend. And you just pass it like you would call a normal fetch. And behind the scenes, it checks from the status header on the request you're calling if you should cache it or not. And I think this is quite useful because a lot of time at the back end, we are also calling APIs or some resource,
Yeah.
and we don't actually, cache this result. So each time we are always calling back on the server. So I think this also adds some good performance benefits. And before I made
Sounds
this, I
good.
actually made Midas cache, which is also like a dump cache. Like, it doesn't respect RFC in any way. And I
You too.
it's easier to just make a cache and like it works, than following RFCs. And then I saw this other library that makes it easier to, check based on some objects to decide if you should store it or revalidate. And yeah, I also use that.
That's nice. That's a
Yeah.
good project. And that's like the SWR, maybe.
What?
That's SWR. That's a package from Vercel, I see.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that one is good if you are using it in the front end.
yeah,
I don't. Yeah.
your is only for backend. So.
Yeah, mine is only for the back end. SWR works
Okay,
great in the client, but I don't think SWR is. I think it only works with the stale wire revalidate condition in the spec. It doesn't fully support the whole HTTP cache control settings.
okay. Yeah, and I'm just checking. SWR is designed to work with React, so I think
Yeah,
it doesn't really work with only Node. So that's
yeah,
a really good project because most of people just send their API calls and consume the bandwidth. So with
yeah.
your tool, don't it will reduce the bandwidth used.
I think it
That's
should
nice.
also be. We should also have more education around HTTP caching, because a lot of APIs also fail to use proper HTTP caching, and they just use Redis behind the scene and not put caching, also cache control settings for the APIs. And I think a lot of services would benefit heavily from that. Maybe things like e-commerce, for example.
Yeah, and I think today we have a good connection, internet connection, and we don't really care about refreshing or just sending um, sending a request as a cost, but as our servers and the bandwidth uh, are increased, so the server performances,
True.
we don't see the benefits of these optimizations. But it was really used in 1990, near that, because we hadn't a decent connection. So today people don't care, I think, about these performances. That's that.
True. Yeah, but I think it's also because maybe you have a fast internet at work, and
Yeah.
you're running it local on your computer, so you don't really see the real user performance. And those are important things that I've also been guilty of. And I think it's I'm starting to encourage developers to care about them, especially also with when you measure lighthouse scores. you know Sometimes those are just synthetic, they are not real, and you feel comfortable that, oh, I have 100 over 100, or I have 90, and you feel comfortable. But the real user performance are still lacking. And I think there are talks on it. Like, I think Performance.now conference, they have some talks. Next week I also have another guest who is going to talk about, like, measuring performance, and I'm curious about that one because it's a topic that I'm a total beginner, and I would like to see how to do this real user monitoring and measurement of performance.
That's so great.
Yeah. So
I'm interested
we're almost.
about that.
What did you want to say? Sorry, I missed that.
I'm interested about the next topic.
Yeah, join
But
us. I could send you the link when it's time. I have one
yeah,
question I would also like to talk about, which I think you gave a conference talk about, which you titled "What's Next in the HTTP Caching World." I have
yeah.
a guess that this is related to what I saw in Souin documentation about the cache groups spec, but maybe you can talk more about that in general.
About the cache groups.
Not
Uh,
really about the cache group, but more like what's your talk about what is next in the
ah,
HTTP cache world.
there were some RFCs that are in draft mode, so that's not accepted. But there are some proposals from mostly from Mark Nottingham, the
From who?
uh, Mark Nottingham. That's one who worked at Fastly and Akamai. Yeah, and he sent a proposal about um, um, increasing to increase the HTTP performances, so using cache groups and other RFCs. So that's the guy who wrote the RFC about the cache at use and the targeted cache control.
Okay.
Is really really active about the RFCs because he has the needs of that, and he want to propose a standard instead of each CDN or caching system have their own way to invalidate or manage the cache groups or anything else. And you want to have a standard around that to be able to change your caching system uh, um, without pain. So you can change from Akamai to Fastly easier than actually in the future. We cross our fingers about that,
And this,
but yeah,
sorry, I wanted to ask, and this is done through the cache groups.
I didn't understand.
You
Sorry.
mean being able to switch your cache or CDN between different providers? How would this likely work? What's the proposal?
Because your application, for example, with cache invalidation, it will send an HTTP request to a specific endpoint with some headers and some data in these headers. And the goal of this RFC is to have a standard, and even if you are using Akamai or Fastly, the same there will be the same behavior with the same request. So if today you have an account at Akamai and your application sends the purge request to invalidate the cache, for example, tomorrow you want to change to another CDN provider, your application should continue to work. So it should be able to invalidate your cache and invalidate your groups and all of that.
Oh, I get it now. So probably that
Because
would be
actually you're locked in your CDN because they have their own implementations about the surrogate keys or cache groups or Y keys. There is a lot of different things. So that you want to have a global contract and give the user the choice of its CDN.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting because every provider have their specific like pattern of configuring, like invalidating cache, and when you move to a different provider you also need to do the same thing. I think that would
Yeah,
be nice. Yeah, it's kind of
yeah,
also with on fast. I think Fastly uses Vanish behind the scenes, and I think for customers when they want to customize their CDN cache, they have to write the rules and configuration with VCL, and that's what the guys at Changelog podcast does. So now they are trying to switch to self-host their own like CDN or cache, and that's the reason why they chose Vanish, because they already have some Vanish configuration files, and it will be easier for them to just move to Vanish and run the same configuration in Vanish.
yeah.
But
But
having a standard would help.
what?
I say, but having a standard would help make it easier to switch. If you don't
Yeah,
have to be tied down to Vanish.
yeah, and Fastly and Akamai and other providers have their own API in front that you can request to invalidate or store something. So manage the cache, and so as users are logged, they can have their own APIs, and there is no so as the Akamai clients or Fastly clients are logged, they don't have the choice to stay in this provider or rewrite their applications they developed
Yeah,
for years. So
yeah,
they have they own their users.
true. Uh, I just realized because I'm trying a new streaming multimedia streaming with Algora, and I just realized that it's not actually streaming to YouTube, because I'm checking
Ah,
YouTube and it and it shows that the YouTube stream is not live, but then the other one is streaming on the other platform, and but anyway, I
yeah,
think it's also recorded on the other. It's also recorded on the other platform. So
okay.
I'm going to be able to probably download the video and upload
Yeah,
it
well,
on YouTube.
I can come back.
Yay! We have a second chance because today we didn't get to see like a more demo about Souin. We can do that next time.
Yeah, but that was interesting to discuss with you.
yeah. So, but I know you asked a question or you had a topic you wanted to discuss uh, before we started the stream about building your own CDN or something along those lines. Maybe we can
Yeah,
talk about it for a few minutes before we wrap up.
yeah. So, why did you choose to have some interest to the CDN? Why? What was the reason behind it? Just for knowing and or just for acquiring acquire new knowledges or new skills or something like that.
So it's the first reason was because I listened to the guys at Changelog Media. So I don't know if you know this Changelog
I
podcast
don't know.
or Ship It podcast, some of those podcasts. So they've been running their podcast for years, and I think they had issues regarding their CDN. They because it's from a provider, they don't
Okay.
have like control over it. So sometimes they have like high cache hit ratio, maybe like 90, 97, but sometimes it drops low to like 50% cache hit
Okay.
ratio, and they could not control it. They tried different things. They tried like Cloudflare, I think, and a few others, and they were still having issues. So that was what led them to trying to see how they can run their own caching layer or proxy so that they will be able to reach their goal of maybe always over maybe more than 95% cache hit ratio most of the time. So I listened to that podcast and it was interesting why they are doing it, like building your own CDN, but this is more like self-purpose CDN, not a CDN like Akamai or Fastly. So that was a very interesting conversation for me. And then because I also like to learn by doing, I also got more curious about okay, how does CDN work? And then I discovered like okay, there's this whole caching standards and there's like caching proxies and whatnot. So that was what sparked the curiosity to try to do it. Not that I want to build my own CDN as a product or deploy, but I want to understand everything that goes on behind the scenes for CDNs, which is why I also started this YouTube channel and luckily also be able to have you. So that is the reason why I'm doing it.
Okay. That's a good result.
Yeah. Maybe in
Sometimes I
the
just to discover the mainly to discover and learn some things.
yeah,
Not really to have to build a production CDN.
not really. I mean, maybe if I have enough information and I feel like okay, all the current CDNs are old, maybe I should build mine, probably. But for now, it's all about learning and exploration. So so
That's good.
far, so
You have
far,
the motivation for that. That's good.
yeah. And maybe without that motivation, I might not have released this other project I showed you before, the one I did with to cache the request and the server. I mean, it's all out of curiosity, and then I had to make my own library as well. So those are like benefits of these things. But I know I spoke to I think 2 weeks ago I spoke to Alex, and he's also building his own CDN Skip2
Yeah.
network,
Yeah.
and he's actually using Caddy and Souin as his
Yeah, I discussed with him about some issues.
oh yeah. So that's quite interesting. So he is the one that maybe we should have again and say, oh, but I think he talked a bit about it 2 weeks ago in the stream. why he's building his own CDN and how he sees, CDN to be different, which is quite a whole different conversation because each different people have a different perspective about CDN. So he has a very unique perspective about CDN in terms of, okay, it's doing the part of the content delivery, focus on content delivery and not overcomplicating the tools. Today, if you go to like maybe Cloudflare, that was used to be known for CDN. Now they have like a lot of product, and I think it's slowly becoming like AWS. You don't even know what to do on the UI, and some of the product are maybe either in beta or half baked. So for him, his focus is making a more simple CDN, and that I admire. And one other aspect of me also thinking about running my own self-purpose CDN. It's more like doing, when you have more control over your CDN, you can do much more powerful stuff with it. So I was thinking of it in terms of like like some e-commerce stores here, and they want a lot more control over their the data they cache and how they handle it. Those are the kind of things that you could customize really specifically for that client. But also, when you have your own, it means you are not competing with resources with other customers of your provider. You can always be sure that you are mostly hitting 90 or 100%, because the way it works with this provider is, if maybe you cache a content for 1 year or 60 days, but then your website does not get any requests for maybe 10 days or so, they would invalidate your or remove your resource from the cache because they need more disk space to keep it. So that
Yeah.
also causes, that reduces the benefit of why you needed a CDN in the first place. So those are the reasons I think you should also be considering running your own content or caching proxy, not the full CDN like with money, what's it called, like bot protection and all. But I mean, those are all still doable. Depends on what you want to do. Uh, so my side project with the CDN is actually using like Apache traffic server to web
Okay.
traffic server to do the caching proxy because it has all the spec compliant one. But then the request also first of all hits like a Node.js server. And with that Node.js server, I'm using a different tool where it can check the requests and inspects the request on if it's from a bot, if it's an approved bot, or if I want to run risk limiting on it. I can all do that before it hits the origin. So these are all things I've been able to learn and see how possible it is to do. And unlike if you have to have a hardware or software firewall that does not really know how to do some of those things. So those are different angles.
That's a big project. And
Yeah,
for the WAF, you already have some GitHub repositories that can handle that for you about the WAF.
if I have a GitHub repository.
No, I mean you said you don't have to have the bot detection included in your CDN, but you don't have to record one because there are a lot of projects that
Yeah,
are open source on GitHub, so you can reuse them for the community
yeah, you can use
and focus on your CDN features and not on the bot detection.
yeah. Even for the proxy, also it's also open source. It's
Yeah.
Apache traffic server. So a lot of open source tools that you can put together to do something custom, because a lot of time we use a lot of managed product and we find it assume they are so complex. Yes, they are complex, but it's also something you can learn and run. A lot of them also have open source version, or maybe it could also be paid version that you could use, and those are what's possible. Yeah. So we can start wrapping up. Since we didn't get to show off Souin a bit, I would um, share this screen a bit so that people can see. Check out Souin. It's on souin.io. Maybe I would have Sylvain come again in the future to do a small demo on how
Yeah,
this
and
actually works.
I have some stuff to show the next time.
Yeah.
So
So
that
check
will
it
be
out.
better.
I think he's also on Twitter, on yeah,
Yeah,
Dark Whip or Dark Week, I think.
yeah, Dark Week dev
Dev.
underscore dev,
Oh, underscore.
because Dark Week was already taken, so
Oh,
I had to add the suffix underscore dev.
yeah. I had the same with my username as well. It was taken, so I added an underscore. Yeah.
And
So
I contacted the guy who had Dark Week, and he said, "No, I want to sell it to you. I will keep it." And, okay.
yeah. So yeah, find him on Twitter, DM him. I think it's very open to approach. See, it was fairly easy to get him on my podcast, and I'm so happy for that. You can also find me on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it, underscore P underscore Mbanugo, MBANUGO. And Sivan, is there any other thing you want to mention or plug before, maybe about yourself, about your work, maybe sponsorship for your open source work before we wrap up?
No, I just have to just want to say that was a great moment to discuss with you about the tech, and I hope there will be another meeting like that.
Yeah,
Maybe
should.
with uh, other other people, maybe like Alex, or I don't know.
So you would
Uh,
like to do a joint, like with one, maybe like two extra
yeah,
guests?
like a round table with more people, and but that was fun to discuss only with you. That was sure.
Okay,
And
we
you're really really that was a great moment.
yeah, my pleasure. I missed you a bit at the end, but yeah, I think I get the message. Yeah, so
My internet connection is coming now.
probably. Yeah. So next week we have another stream with a fantastic guest. I think her name is Sia. It's also going to happen on Thursday. I think my the stream from last week and this week and next week are all happening on Thursdays at the same time, which is quite interesting. I have Sia Karamalagos, and we will be talking about um, web performance debugging and monitoring. So join us again next week, and stay tuned for when I reschedule with Sylvain again.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And yeah, see you, streamers, and enjoy your evening.
Bye bye.